Good evening, welcome to the Goffstown Capital Improvement Committee meeting. This is one of many meetings we have over the summer to accept requests from department heads and committees. And as a subcommittee of the planning board, we are not a budget committee. We do not change numbers, we just plug them into the matrix to try to create an even flow for taxes that happen from year to year. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Danielle, who has some housekeeping items.
Good evening, everyone. We have two sets of minutes, one from May 30th and one from June 20th.
If I may interrupt you, Danielle, I apologize. I did not do the roll call, and we'll start with you, Danielle.
Danielle Besora, Assistant Town Administrator.
Jim Craig, Select Board Representative.
Jack Carbonell, School Board Representative.
Colleen Mayu, Community at Large Representative.
Tim Redmond, Planning Board Member.
Jim Raymond, I'm always late.
Samantha Kearns, Budget Committee Member.
Brad Parkhurst, Member at Large.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Thank you, everyone, for being here now. Please continue, Danielle.
So two sets of minutes that we'll ask the committee to vote on tonight, one from the May 30th meeting and one from June 20th. And then the other housekeeping item that I had before you is a copy of the capital improvement plan summary worksheet that's submitted from the admin department. This is for an additional project that was not previously listed on the matrix. So that was on the table in front of your seat this evening. Derek has asked that we send this forward to the committee for consideration and putting it into the matrix. So this would be a placeholder of $100,000 for the Goffstown Master Plan update. And that was a takeaway from the discussion that the committee held about when the plan was last reviewed and when it should have been updated. So we want to make sure we capture that in the 5 to 10 years since it was last updated in 2020.
And I saw this for the proposed year of 2028
Yes.
with a priority 3.
So let's start with the minutes. We have the minutes of May 30th. I know we only got them tonight. So if we'd like to delay the vote on the minutes until everybody has a chance to read them, we can delay the vote on all the minutes that we've just received until the next meeting.
So the May 30th minutes were received on June 1st or 2nd, I believe. They went out by email and a copy was provided at the June 6th meeting. And then the June 20th ones went out again by email, but a hard copy was presented tonight. So if you prefer to read the hard copies, you should hopefully have a copy of all of them now.
So we have to vote on the 30th and the 6th at the least, because they were both provided prior.
You don't have to vote on either of them if you'd like
All right,
to table them.
let's leave all the minutes until our next meeting, so everyone has a chance to read through them and make sure they agree with the text. And we'll vote on minutes from these prior meetings at our next meeting.
6 was the one I missed, so I shouldn't be on there as present.
We'll get to that. You can make that a note.
Okay.
That one was altered at the
I was
last
going to
meeting.
say, I think because that was brought up.
right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You made the
maybe I made copies off the email.
Have we voted on any of these minutes, Brad, before?
I thought we had
Yes.
voted.
Only on the June 6th. The
June
May
6th.
30th was prior to that, but the vote
Okay.
was never.
Thank you, Brad, for that.
the...
So we'll vote on the May 30th and the June 20th minutes at our next meeting. We have a chance to look at them. Okay, so do you want to go back to the admin additional items, Danielle, please?
Sure. So there's just the one additional item. This is a request to add in a line for the Goffstown Master Plan update with a placeholder of $100,000 in the year of 2028.
Okay, so this is just being submitted now, we don't have to even discuss it at this point.
It's not listed on the previous matrix.
Will it be on a future matrix when we finally vote on it?
It will, as long as the committee is willing to accept it as a later submission.
All right, so does anybody object to receiving this tonight and including it on the matrix?
No.
Seeing none, we accept it.
Thank you.
Is there anything other than the DPW worksheets or on the table besides to discuss?
Nope.
All right, we'll go over the DPW worksheets prior to Adam doing his presentation. So what are the additional DPW worksheets, Danielle?
So there was the one-page summary that Adam provided this evening,
Yep,
giving
got
the
that.
background. And
just tell us what they are and Adam can explain them when he comes up.
Yep. The worksheets that Patty provided printouts for correspond to the projects that are coming up that you see in the matrix. They are summarized on the worksheet, so you'll notice you'll have one for vehicles and equipment rather than one for each piece of equipment. And then there's one for the road plan and one for the culverts. And then the matrix that we're working off of is the one we've been using for the last couple meetings, the May 30th, 2024 matrix. And DPW's items start with vehicles on page 2.
Is the culvert, oh, maybe I should leave.
And then the projects are on the following page. in
The culverts
DPW.
are ongoing, more than one.
Yes.
Are we gonna be using the matrix that's in the DPW section to look at tonight?
So that matrix was incorporated into the combined matrix, so by sticking with the working matrix we've been using, it helps us catch if there were any errors or anything when that was copied over and pulled into this.
So, well, why do we have this in here if we're not gonna use it?
That's just background, that's actually what the department had submitted originally.
Okay, so we're gonna stick to our standard matrix that we've been working on since we got it. And for everyone's information, what is
I have 123,
it's 530, 24, what one are we using here?
Yep, printed for
530.
5/30/24, that's
Okay.
correct.
Got the right matrix.
Yeah. And it starts right at the beginning of page 2 with line 44.
line 44. That must be
It's
the,
their vehicles and equipment.
All right, with that, we'll invite Adam up.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. All right, so it sounds like vehicles is up first in your full matrix.
Is there anything, before you wanna go over your one-page document, or is that just something for us or information?
That was more
purposes?
for your information, just, we tend to get some questions here as well as budget committee that are very similar, so it gives you a sense of kind of what we have in front of us, especially when it comes to the total number of vehicles for the department and total number of, infrastructure type assets.
Thank you.
So on, to start with vehicles, as you probably see on the one pager, we've got about 3 dozen large vehicles or equipment to process our operations, mainly highway and solid waste department. So those two divisions incorporate most of our equipment. We do a lot of in-house construction work, so we have a lot of full-size dump trucks, but those double in winter months for obviously plowing and salting the roads. The solid waste division, we do our own curbside collection, as you probably know. We have 4 curbside trucks now. The select board authorized me to keep the outgoing curbside truck from the previous replacement in order to have backup trucks available to us. Those trucks are so constantly in use that when they're down, if we only have one backup, it puts us in a little bit of a sticky situation if we have a flat tire or a brake failure or a leak. And that second truck now is offline. Prior to this year, we only had one backup truck for both the curbside and the solid waste division. So there aren't a lot of options, short notice, for us to call a company with a free automated curbside truck to come and collect cans, which would then start to create a problem. So the select board allowed us to keep the truck that was on the CIP a couple years ago, and we just received the replacement truck this year. So now we have 4. That also helped this year in particular with the default budget. We were supposed to replace another curbside truck this year. Because we now have 4, it puts a little less pressure on us to have that truck replaced. So we deferred that truck, which allowed the town-wide budget in the default scenario to be a little bit less cumbersome to handle. But we did slot that back in, as you'll see in a second. So for 2025, the matrix shows this well, I think, in the notes section, but the replacements I have slated for next year, for the most part, are vehicles or equipment that have been deferred. So we had a couple from 2023, the Freightliner tractor and the Shagnon roll-off trailer. Those sort of go together, both for the solid waste division. So the tractor is just, it's not a farm tractor, but it's a tractor trailer truck type truck that hauls our solid waste trailers and the currently the roll-off trailer, which is a large, very large trailer with some hydraulics and cable lift system in which we use to haul our canisters for demolition, metals, and occasionally storm debris type material. So we have large roll-off cans. The problem with our current system is that the roll-off cans we have are oversized, and there aren't many companies that are available to haul those cans. The standard size is usually smaller. So when the roll-off trailer is offline, which it was for a significant couple-week period last year, we had a hard time finding companies that could haul our cans. So we had to have companies drop off smaller cans and then they could haul them. The plan is to consolidate the tractor and the roll-off trailer, which were both in the 2023 CIP, for a total of $370,000, consolidate those two things into a smaller roll-off truck. So instead of a tractor-trailer truck and a large trailer, it would be a smaller single unit which can haul a standard size can. Because it's a single unit and not a combination unit, it doesn't require a Class A CDL, which is a little bit more rare. We have a few in our department, Class A CDL holders, but we have much more Class B CDL holders, so in a pinch, we can have somebody else drive this smaller truck.
So you're planning to keep are you going to keep the larger trailer to keep your other containers moving?
The plan would be to modify our trailers. We've spoken to a fabrication welding shop that can cut down the larger cans so we could actually keep them. We'd replace them in the future with smaller cans, but we could cut them down, make them more of the standard size that would fit with a roll-off trailer. And then that would allow us to, if that truck was down for something, or if we needed, if we had a large amount of debris or a major storm in town that had a need for roll-off cans to be distributed throughout town, we could use our truck, but also we could have a vendor maybe come in and pick up those cans or transport them for us, which they couldn't.
So my question is, are you phasing out the tractor-trailer roll-off
Exactly.
system?
Right, yes, absolutely. We have two, right now we have two tractor trailers, two tractors, and the one roll-off trailer. The idea is phase out one of those tractors because its main task right now is to be hauling those cans throughout the week, back and forth to either the demolition site or the metals, Schnitzer Metals. So we would go down to one tractor trailer for our live floor trailers, which haul solid waste and recycling, and then we would have the roll-off truck, which would handle all the cans.
So what do you do for a spare tractor then, in the event that your solid waste tractor is offline?
The nice thing about the tractor trailer is that if that's offline, it is a lot easier to find a company that will haul our live floor trailers for us because it's a standard fifth wheel hitch. And so the thought is, don't have something that's almost impossible to find somebody that can, in a short notice, help you out. It would be more of a standard thing to have out in the market.
So you're not keeping the Freightliner tractor as a spare tractor for the
That's
solid
correct.
waste?
So the one Freightliner would go to auction, the roll-off trailer would go to auction, and instead of those two things, we would just have one roll-off truck, and then we'd keep our
Thank you.
other
Brad?
tractor trailer.
Okay, is that you said they were deferred from 2023 for
Yes.
370 or something like that?
Yes.
Is that way that I see the reduced cost of 285?
That's right. So a smaller roll-off truck is $285, and then I just put a $1 placeholder for the trailer because that would be part of that combination unit.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Then
Before you move on to any other questions on the roll-off situation with the Public Works Director before we move on?
Can you remind us what a live floor solid waste means?
I
You have
can.
little snakes squiggling around that.
So those are our rolling billboards that we have. You see them, they're pretty unpainted, shiny metal trailers that say Town of Goffstown on them. Those have, the live floor is a hydraulically operated floor that will allow us to pack with our compactors, either trash or recycling, and feed the trailer. But then it allows the hydraulic system to be operated when you get to your destination, and it will discharge. So instead of tipping a big closed-top tractor trailer up and just allowing it to slide out, you can operate the hydraulics and it will actually eject the material.
It has a mechanical floor that lifts the trash and moves it back incrementally until it all goes out the back.
Okay, thank you.
It allows us to get a little bit more efficient loading of the trailers because you can use the floor to assist loading, but then unloading is a lot easier too, so you can actually pack it a little more full than you would otherwise.
Any more questions on solid waste trucks? Thank you. Go ahead, Adam, please.
Okay, so next down, we've got another item that had been deferred. That's the 2016 Peterbilt New Way Packer. So that's a curbside truck. That was, as I mentioned earlier, deferred from this year in order to kind of make the default situation work. The reason I put it right back in for next year is because right now, at least with this last truck, it's about a 2-year delivery from the time we place an order. It has to be the cabin chassis is constructed by the truck manufacturer, so Mack or Peterbilt, and then and they're pretty backed up. Once they complete the truck, it gets delivered to the body manufacturer, who puts the curbside apparatus on the back of it. So that whole process has taken about 2 years. So by putting it in 25, we can expect that truck around 2027. So by that point, our oldest truck will be pretty darn ready to go. So that's in there. I increased the amount from last year just by $10,000 to account for the increased cost of what we anticipate for inflation.
Any questions regarding the trash truck? Go ahead, Eric. Adam, please.
Okay. The next two items were both deferred from 2024, but I split them up just to sort of level out or reduce the amount of the increase in our vehicles from 2024 to 2025. They are message trailers. So we have 4 variable message boards that we use for construction projects, but also other big town events, Pumpkin Regatta, et cetera, that may impact traffic, especially in the village, 114 and 13. So those message trailers are the 2 oldest ones are 2006, so I'm proposing one this year, or one 2025 and one in 2026. They are a manual hand crank, so there's a steel cable and a manual hand crank, but unfortunately you have to be basically underneath the sign and cranking it. They're fairly dangerous if the cable snaps when you're in midstream of the operation. There's nothing to hold the sign from falling down to the detente on the bottom. So if it's 2 feet up, if you're cranking it from the base position where you trailer it from site to site and you want it to be up 3 feet when you get to the site so folks on the road can see it, and you're cranking, you could be 2.5 feet up in that process, and if the cable snaps, which they do from time to time, the sign will fall, which obviously is pretty dangerous if you're right there. But also the controllers of these are now approaching 20 years old, so we do have issues with the charging system for the batteries. And batteries aren't the most expensive thing, but the safety coupled with the controller malfunctions that we've had have led us to try to get those replaced. The newest 2 that we have are, which we purchased with some of the additional highway funds that the state had appropriated a few years ago, are able to be programmed from the office or remotely from the field. So that does help too in some cases where we want to either change a message midstream or turn off a message that might no longer be applicable. We can do it from the office if we had to. So that's kind of a nice feature as well. So we've got one of those for next year.
Questions on the message trailer from anybody? Okay.
And then the next item is a F550 1-ton dump truck. So this would be a large Ford dual wheel type pickup truck, but it'd be equipped with instead of a pickup bed, it would have a dump body, which allows us to use during the construction season, as well as a spreader. So we have a combination body that would be used as a salt spreader in the winter months, and then it has a plow package, a plow and a side wing. So it's a little bit smaller truck. Typically in the winter, our smaller trucks like this are used some of the parks in Pinardville or some of the more narrow streets where we can't necessarily fit a large 6-wheel dump truck or a 10-wheel dump truck with a wing. This 550 is better suited to those smaller streets, especially the camp roads down by the river. The other piece about a 550 compared to a 6-wheel dump truck or a 10-wheeler is that you do not need a CDL to operate. So we have a few non-CDL holders in the department, and we have limited number of those non-CDL size vehicles. So it's a nice, sometimes entry level. As people get hired, that might be their first assignment, would be on a 550 or even a pickup truck if one's available. As soon as they get a CDL, if there's a large truck available for them, they'd move into that. But we pretty constantly have at least 1 or 2 non-CDL holders in the department.
So is this like a truck that Jason usually drives?
Yes, yes, if you know our cemetery crew, they
That
use
just,
it.
in my own mind, tells me.
And that's another good thing forgot to mention, but I think it's in my worksheet. In the summer months, we do need people haulers as well. There's only 2 seats in the large dump trucks. So some of these are, able to fit more employees and especially for the non-CDO holders, if they have to go back to the yard to get, a fitting or a pipe or whatever, haul the trailer with them, they can use one of these instead of a large dump truck.
I know the police department was having issues with Ford manufacturing trucks, and I realize like it's a completely different vehicle, but do you see that happening? A new, like, is there a reason that you're going with Ford over Chevy, or?
This is replacing a Ford. When the time would come to replace, I guess it would depend.
Obviously, they rotate their vehicles
Usually
a lot
we
more.
do look to Ford to sort of consolidate, keep the fleet similar. So if our mechanics are accustomed to working on a Ford truck engine or a truck, they can, stock only Ford parts. It helps to consolidate our parts room for sure, but we're not married to that. So if this is approved and in the budget and I come to the board next year and the state bid, let's say, is a Dodge or a Chevrolet, and it's a good value for the town, or if something happens with Ford manufacturing between now and then, either for that timeline you mentioned or maybe a recall situation or something, we very might recommend going with a different model.
Okay.
But
I know what state bid is. Could you explain to the folks on the panel what state bid is?
Sure. State of New Hampshire, much like many states, they'll go out to bid for their entire fleet, and then they break down their specifications. Different departments for the state and need different things. Some need, highway division or bridge maintenance might need a dump body like us, but maybe the fish and game might need just a pickup truck. So for each of the different specifications the state needs, they'll go out to bid, and it could be a 4x2 pickup truck is awarded to Grapponi Ford this year. A 4x4 pickup truck may be awarded to Hillsborough Ford or to the Dodge dealer or Quirk. So it's a very, 4 or 5 pages maybe, Tim, listing, and it's all these different specifications of vehicles, and they've put it out far and wide, and using the state's processes, awarded these individual. Our local purchasing policy, but also the state's bidding process, says that any town or city in New Hampshire can also purchase from these winning bidders at that price. So as part of the deal for be willing to sell to the state, you have to be willing to sell to towns and cities at that same price. Usually it's a pretty good deal because of the volume dealt with.
It also prevents you from having to get multiple bids. If it's a state bid item, you don't have to put the vehicle out to bid.
Yep.
Because it's already what would be assumed to be the lowest price available.
I'm glad you asked the question. Because that was going to be my question. It was going to be my question about, don't we have to go out to bid?
Any questions about the F-550 plow with a spreader at this time? Okay, Adam?
And then to round out, the last thing I've got for 2025 is a equipment trailer. So these, although CIP level is normally $25,000, we've been including any plated equipment. So if it's got a registration and a plate from the DMV, we include it on our CIP. It's not really a vehicle, but it's plated, so I'm kind of treating it like such. So this is just a trailer that we use usually for pipe, drainage supplies, drainage structures in the summertime. They don't, get a whole heck of a lot of use in the winter, but certainly pretty constant almost daily for the whole construction season. So we've allocated $20,000 to replace that trailer.
Is that a state bid item?
It could be.
think it might be.
What we had this year, we did have a couple of trailers up this year. We were able, our purchasing policy locally here allows us state bid or other cooperatively bid purchase agreements. There's a couple around the country. Sourcewell is one that we've used lately with pretty good results. Same idea, they've put it out to the whole country, so the idea, hopefully economy of scale, they get a pretty good price. But then there's regional dealers now that will honor that Sourcewell pricing. So the 2 trailers we had this year, I think, were both Sourcewell. So we may go that route too if the pricing is good. The state has less, they don't have a trailer bid list like they do for vehicles. I think they, just because they don't do a ton of trailer purchases, I think.
Questions about the trailer? So I'm gonna ask a question of Jim Raymond, because you've been filling in since I left a long time ago. How come we're not seeing all the DPW vehicles, including all the plow trucks, on the vehicle matrix anymore? Did you guys decide to eliminate that for some reason?
Not that I recall, but
I can answer
recall
it if
what
you
I had
like.
for breakfast anymore.
Well, we used, the last time I was here, DPW would put a list of all their vehicles.
Yeah.
And I know it took a lot of pages, but it really showed us what the total number of vehicles were. Now, I see you don't have any plow trucks on the matrix this year. Are the plow trucks being funded through the Board of Selectmen independently, or are you just not asking for any plow trucks?
No plow trucks up this year. I do have a couple in the out years.
Okay.
I had stopped a couple of years ago. We did have that extra, all the zeros for the bottom half of our department vehicles. I sort of hope that if the committee would like, I can kind of fill out my one pager with a little bit more info about, okay, this is what year maybe down the road this is going to be.
Was your submission that's in your, does this one list all your vehicals, or is this the same as what we're seeing right now?
It does not. That's basically the
Is
same.
that
It just keeps all my vehicles and putting it together versus putting the PD in fire.
So this list does not include.
That's not all the vehicles the town of Public
right.
Works owns and operates. And we used to see the whole list of everything, right down from the biggest roll-off trailer all the way down to the pickup truck.
Right.
Now, did anybody tell you to shorten the list, or did you just do it for? to be
I just did it
quick about
because,
things?
kind of in the same vein as, the focus on next year. I thought beyond year 5, it's all just kind of smoke and mirrors anyway of, what year anything's going to actually get replaced. My hope was if I say, hey, here's my 36 pieces of equipment that are in our total CIP cycle until we get back around to the beginning.
Well,
between that
we'll
and
go
this.
over what we'd like to have next year possibly, when we're done, before we conclude
Sure.
our deliberations.
Yeah, I just don't remember how the discussion was.
We'll get there later.
So what we're seeing now on the vehicles and stuff is what you have projected all the way out to 20, whatever it is.
5 years.
And
Period
those
of
that are not, I think that's what you want to see, Tim.
We're actually only seeing 4 years, or is,
Well, we're seeing now, well,
So you've
I'm
got,
seeing out to
30.
2030.
25
you've got 6
20,
years
30.
6 years in the
total
CIP.
in the
1,
CIP.
2, 3, 4, okay, 5, 6, right.
This list is probably about twice as long if I include the whole, department's worth of
Now,
vehicles.
we might ask for that in the future. Have a
Sure.
complete list of all the vehicles. Thank you. Any other questions about vehicles before I let Adam move on to other subjects?
But
Oh.
just to be clear, I'm sorry.
Oh, so I noticed I know this is really small, but the New Hampshire, the Beautiful grant, you have $5,000 in every single line except for 2028.
Oh, yes. So the New Hampshire the
happened?
Beautiful grant.
We're not beautiful anymore.
We're not beautiful. Only some
They only
years are
award
beautiful.
them annually, they don't award them in advance, do they?
They do not, but we've had so much success
Right.
getting them that we've kind of programmed in as if we do. The New Hampshire Beautiful grant, long story short, is funded by mainly the bottling manufacturers, the soda and beer. And what it does is allows the NRRA, the New Hampshire Resource Recycling Association, which we belong to, they sort of market the commodities for recycling, so all the different construction, demolition, freon, cans, paper, etc. They will award, if you purchase recycling-related equipment, they will award these small grants, $5,000.
Which you have to apply for.
Which you apply for. And any year that I have qualifying equipment, I've slotted in a $5,000 revenue anticipated. Last year, this is probably not a great example, but last year we actually were asked, because of our efforts to apply for a second grant, they had some money left over. So we did, and we got it. So we actually got $10,000 last year instead of just the 5. But
That's like a Christmas gift.
that's right. So that goes to the general fund. But any year that I have solid waste recycling equipment that would qualify, it's got that revenue. So I guess 2028 does not have a qualifying piece of equipment.
Are there any of these years that have 2?
Yes, first year would. So this is 2025 year where we have the roll-off truck and the curbside truck. Both of those in theory would
Okay.
qualify.
Is there maybe something in 27 or 29? We could.
Well, those are too far. Let him worry about them in 27 and 29, right?
Oh, as far as juggling to
Yeah, I
maximize the grant.
think it'd be nice if we just got it every year.
You know,
I know we can't like plan
We
it.
don't have to buy a $300,000 truck just to get it.
Right, no, and I realize that, but I just mean it in the sense of like, if there was something that we could move from one year to the other that would make it so that it happened and, you know, shuffle that around, and so that it really wouldn't affect the matrix too much, but it allowed for that grant.
there may be some of the smaller items. You know, it might be a little bit of a stretch on the sales pitch.
Yeah.
But what I think I probably will do, now that we've known that they may offer a second grant, if you're lucky, when I do my application, I might include a little blurb. If the NRA is so inclined, we have a second piece of equipment this year that might be qualifying. So maybe we could kind of
Okay.
invite them to give us a second grant.
I'd be in favor of that, Samantha, if they were going to end the grants in 2029 or something to that effect. Then I'd want to push stuff up as much as we can. But they've been good about this for so long that I've got grants for them for town wear. They're very good about it.
It's a nice program, and they're, like Tim said, they're pretty
Okay.
If we
consistent.
get on this cycle of default budgets, the stuff will get pushed out, it'll be filled in out there.
Very true.
Sorry, I said the quiet part out loud.
Anything else, folks? Okay, Adam, we can move on to another subject. We go
Okay.
back to your first page, which we received was the road plan.
Okay, so road plan.
Now, where's that, Danielle, in our matrix right now?
If you flip one more
123?
page.
Next
Yep,
page.
page 3.
Next page.
It's about halfway down,
Okay,
line 124.
yep. Right under the green bar.
Okay, so biggest thing to say, I guess, about the road plan. This includes reconstruction of roads that have fully failed, to either add drainage or replace drainage that might be so old it's, you know, the pipes are rusting in the ground. There was a pretty good stretch of time where metal pipes were used, and those are all reaching the end of the life, the galvanized pipe. So we currently replace mostly with plastic pipe, but if we need a larger, you know, 48-inch or above, sometimes we're looking at concrete. And then if they get much larger than that, we have to talk about a precast concrete culvert. But reclaim projects generally are the smaller drainage stuff that's underneath the roadways. So 12, 18, 24-inch pipes, precast concrete structures, and then what you see from the street, the steel inlets, you know, catch basin grates or manhole covers. So that we have the reclaim of old failed roads. We have overlay of what normally are our main roads, our heavily traveled collector roads that may be about 10 to somewhere in the 15-year of age since they were last rebuilt. We will try to add an inch and a half or sometimes 2 inches of asphalt in order to extend the lifetime of that road by another 10 years plus. And then there's kind of a third category of this road has failed, but we just don't have enough money because it's so much more expensive to rebuild a road. But it's so bad that I'm probably going to get fired, and some of you might start to hear some people in the audience if all the roads got this bad. We need to do something in the short term. We call it a Band-Aid fix, you know, a small shim, which would just be a coat over a failed road. The problem with those are they only last about 5 to 6, 7 years before the failures that are underneath, usually as a result of poor drainage, reflect up through the new asphalt. So you can cover over old stuff, but those same cracks, those same potholes, those same, you know, ruts will start to reform again almost in the same spot. So it really is a stopgap measure until we can get back and reclaim. But it serves an extremely important purpose with some of these streets that are just, you know, so bad that we can't keep deferring them. So we dedicate a smaller but a portion of our budget towards those Band-Aid fixes. And I think, and if I recall correctly, maybe even Jim asked this question last year. This year I'm proposing for the first year in a couple of years increasing the annual amount of the road plan. We saw a pretty significant increase in the cost of asphalt this year. Don't quote me, but I think we went from $72 to 90-something a ton from last construction season to this. And as you might expect, where the biggest cost of this road plan is the cost of asphalt, that immediately, you know, puts about a 15 to 20% whack into what we can accomplish, which in turn begins to stack up. And you know, as you defer a street or two, aside from the upset residents, if we start deferring some of our main road overlays too long, we encroach towards rebuild territory instead of that preventive maintenance type treatment. So now you're increasing the cost of it, 3, 4, 5-fold if you wait too long. So keep your good roads good, and by keeping a steady amount of funding, we can try to do that. So we're trying to plug the dike from both ends, keep our nice roads nice, but also rebuild the failed roads as fast as we can to get them to that good category, where we can then spend maintenance dollars instead of rebuild dollars to keep them going. So as a kind of a nod toward that, I've increased from 1.6 million to 1.8 million for next year. We have sort of a projected list for what we'd like to get to in the coming handful of years. I don't tend to broadcast that because the second I put out any information publicly, A, it's probably old news by tomorrow, but B, now it's kind of starting the clock with the neighborhood of, hey, you said we were going to be on the list this next year and you didn't get to us, what happened? Every year we tend to have something that we just don't get to and gets deferred. This year, with the combination of the default and the extra asphalt pricing, it's going to be right down to the fall before I know exactly what we've been able to accomplish. One of the great things about Goffstown is we have a very talented in-house construction crew that does manage our own projects and do a large amount of the work on these reclaim projects. We do contract out the paving portion, but one of the downsides is we're kind of limited by our own ability to get through those projects. So Tim from the Sewer Commission can certainly attest to the fact that sometimes our great ideas from last year, even 12 months later, are kind of into the wind. So a good example, we had hoped last year at budgeting time to be able to participate with some drainage improvements on Albert Street, which was a sewer project this year. Once we realized what the costs of asphalt and the rest of our budget impacts were going to be this year, we had to start making some cuts. So we tossed a few streets, unfortunately, down to either next year or years later. And Albert Street, we just couldn't afford the change order cost of the paying a contractor to do the drainage work. We were able to keep a couple other streets on our road plan this year by not paying the contractor to do some drainage. So Albert Street didn't get the full treatment that we had hoped last year, but it did end up with some combined effort to get a full repaving.
Just so people know, as a sidebar, when the Sewer Commission has a big project, they coordinate with the Public Works Department. So that when the Sewer Department wants to dig a road all up and replace the sewers, we try to coordinate with DPW so that we share asphalt costs and we only tear the road up once and get all the work done within a year and a half or something time period. And then when it's all put back together, we're not digging up his new road 2 years later and he's not digging up our new road that we paid for. So we try to coordinate with DPW, but it's getting to the point where it's a little difficult because our directions are different right now. We're trying to fix the sewers in the flats down in Pinardville, and that's not on their watch list right now. So we're going to talk with DPW and try to maximize the money for both departments and save the taxpayers and the sewer users money by combining efforts and not him doing a whole project all by himself and then us doing the project by ourselves, which we haven't really done forever. This is the first year it was a glitch because of your default budget.
Right.
So.
Sadly, our roads are failing faster than the sewer's failing. So even though if it's ready for sewer, it's usually ready for the road or drainage to be done. But we've got other roads that aren't sewered, for example, that we may be contiguous with projects we've already started or completed the last couple of years. So geographically, we try
But
to
there is,
finish.
the thought process is there to save money from both departments. So that's how we, for the sewer department, converse with the Public Works Department. We try to coordinate.
I assumed you coordinate in a similar fashion with Manchester Water Works and with the Water Precinct if they have projects?
More so, we do give them kind of here's our outlook, and same with gas. Consolidated utilities, they have some conduit banks in Pinardville, not a ton, but we do try to give the utilities kind of here's our general outlook of how we're going to progress through town. Water Works locally here, with their budget being a little less than Manchester Water Works, they are definitely looking to coordinate with us before they even think about project because they just can't get, they can't afford to do a whole, curb-to-curb resurfacing. So they've got a few projects that they are hoping to hop on once we get to them for the rebuild. Manchester Waterworks, they tend to try to take care of point repairs. Lately, they have not had any, full road replacements of water lines. I don't know if that's just based on how their board wants to progress through their work list, or if they're just that much newer already than Goffstown or Grassmere water precincts are. Some of the Grassmere lines are, I think, 100 years old in some cases, so maybe Manchester's ahead of that game.
The line coming down from the reservoir was 1888
Yeah, crazy,
on Mountain Road.
crazy.
Stamped right in the pipe when we pull it out again. Okay, any more questions about the road plan? Kind of divert
That was a good pipe.
Huh?
That was a good pipe.
Been there a long time. Till you look inside of it.
It's best not to.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not drinkable, but just the pipe starts to grow inward.
Right,
And
yeah.
you lose your diameter from rusting and other chemical processes within the
The
pipe.
poly pig crew was.
Poly
Keith
pipe is
Moore
good, it
back
never
in
goes
the,
away.
No, the poly pig that you sent through the old metal pipe.
Okay, anything else, folks, before we ask Adam to move on to his next page? Seeing none, we'll move over to the critical culvert replacement.
Okay, so
I
we're,
got a quick question.
Okay, Brad?
This is just on the matrix, it shows traffic signal upgrades, but nothing in the out years.
oh, yes, that's on there only because we had the last year of that multi-year project this current year. So because of the 2024 adopted column, that shows up, but that's it.
You
So
can add them in the out years as you need to. Right now, they don't need to be there.
we could, we've moved right through. We have some work on Pinard Street signal this year, and that really will be it.
Did the Rite Aid signal get done?
It did.
Good. Okay,
We've
just wanted to ask.
modernized, so the controllers for the signals, the heads have been replaced with LED and reflective backplates, so they're easier for drivers to see if they're not anticipating traffic signal, or if the power's out, they see it. We've increased the ability of the signals to work properly in all conditions by moving from buried loops in the asphalt, which detect the vehicles, to video detection, so it uses a camera. It's not a traffic camera per se, nobody's out watching it or recording or anything like that, but it has a video eye that if it sees a car coming in that direction, it will act as if there's a loop in the ground detecting that vehicle. So
It's faster and better.
they don't tend to break if the road shifts or ruts, and you don't have to worry about waiting until April to replace it if it fails in December. So far they've been really great, and we've the last signal we have to work is Pinard Street, so that project will be done. So really the only other thing I've got on here, I've moved ahead with a culvert replacement. We've got some pretty large culverts in town that usually, due to both the condition, the size, but also the requirements of the state of New Hampshire when it comes to stream crossing rules, that really increase the cost of replacement. So what may be a 48-inch pipe right now, due to the size of the stream or the watershed that feeds into that culvert, by the new state rules, it might turn into a 10-foot box culvert. They want to simulate stream beds so organisms can pass from one side to the other, so salamanders, turtles, fish, etc. But also, whereas a pipe might have been sized in the past for, maybe it wasn't even engineered, it was just replaced once upon a time, and they said the biggest pipe we have is 48 inches, we'll put it in the ground. Now the state and good engineering practice says, well, let's find out how big is that watershed, and if we have a design storm, so a storm that might have a probability of recurrence of once every 100 years, how much water is going to come through that pipe. We want to make sure we don't lose an entire roadway and cut off emergency response or normal traffic to that road for an extended period of time. By sizing, if we're going to replace this anyway, let's size it appropriately for the water that could possibly come down that in a reasonable amount of time during a heavy storm. So we've got a few right now that are our highest priority. I've got them listed in the memo there. Montalona is the first up. The nice thing about Mauna Lona in this coming year is that we have a FEMA slash Homeland Security Emergency Management of New Hampshire grant for that project. They had a short window of time where they had, I think it was some of the infrastructure funds, but they were, the match was increased from a 75% to I think it was a 90% match. We took advantage of that short window of time where they were advertising this. We applied for this culvert to be replaced. We've done the engineering, the approval is with FEMA. I believe the last step is for FEMA admin to sign the grant paperwork, but we anticipate receiving those funds in 2025, but because of budgeting rules, we have to gross appropriate, so the whole amount of that project, as currently estimated, is in there, $423,000, but then we've got the anticipated revenue of $380,000 for that offset. After that, right now, we will certainly be applying for grants for future year projects, but as of right now, the only one that's in the pipeline is that first year Mauna Lona Road project. The only other thing I'd say about the Mauna Lona culvert is that this is the same waterway. You might remember a few years ago that Christmas night we lost the culvert on East Dunbarton Road, almost into Hooksett, due to storm debris and a failing culvert there. So that road was shut for several weeks in order to get the permitting and the materials and get that replaced. That same water course makes its way down now, having collected even more water, and it crosses under Mauna Lona Road, and it's a very similar size and age to the culvert that we previously lost on East Dunbarton Road. So it kind of ratcheted up the importance for us, but also for the point scoring to get this grant approved, because it's provable that we need something bigger than what's there now. So that's a nice one. The other culverts in the out years, I won't talk much about them, but we've got a big one on Page Hill Road, which is nice for wildlife corridor connectivity with some conservation properties. You might have seen it if you drive Page Hill much. There's a little hollow with a bunch of beaver activity and trees that have come down around it. So that's that one. We have a large culvert on Center Street, which, if you have a somewhat long memory, you might remember this is previously a bridge project.
That's what I was going to say.
We had some grant money from the state for a state aid bridge program funding, which is an 80-20 program. That project, when it was first requested and accepted by the state to be entered into the state aid bridge program, was $1.2 million or $1.4 million project. Our last estimates last year were 4.7, I think, to replace it. Now, when you start talking about a 20% match of almost
Where on
$5
Center
million,
Street is that, Adam?
that is between
Locust Hill?
Locust and Tibbetts, thank you. So it's to the general passerby, it might not even register because it's pretty well overgrown on both sides, and
Right.
there's a guardrail run, but it's a pretty long guardrail, so you don't even really realize it. But it's a multi-plate steel arch culvert. The nice thing about that is really the only problem with it is the invert, which is the bottom of the culvert, is fairly well rusted out, but it's not completely gone. So it's not an emergency situation, but when those fail, they tend to fail quickly once the bottom is gone. So we're not there yet, but at the time, 7-8 years ago, we applied for this bridge aid funding because that was kind of the worst. It qualifies as a bridge because it's a big enough span. That was the worst bridge we had in town, so we said if they're going to give out money for this, we'll apply, and we were accepted, so we said great. As the costs increase, now you start talking about an ask of a $5 million on the warrant, for the town to vote on with the offsetting revenue, but it still would be a net of almost $1 million from the town. And we've got methods of rehabilitation of these metal arch culverts where you can buy yourself 10, 15, 20 more years, and that's kind of where we're at right now. So we've decided we canceled the project with the state. We've put it now on our culvert rehab list, and the fix for this would be similar to what was done years ago by the old Pizza Hut on Mast Road in Pinardville, where you can rebuild with a concrete floor the culvert itself and put in some new reinforcement. The rest of the culvert is in great shape, and if you reinforce and relay the invert of the pipe, you can gain a pretty significant amount of time. So for shorter money, about what we would have got for the town's portion at the beginning of that project when the price was pretty low, we can certainly buy us plenty of time for that one in the future.
So does the 423,025 represent the Mauna Loa project?
It does, yep.
So in the unlikely event that you don't get your FEMA hazard mitigation grant, what happens? Does that go to the taxpayers, or do you have to pull back and reassess?
Option B. We would pull back, reassess. There are other things we could do to that. It's pretty undersized compared to what the engineering says we would need to do there. Most likely with that, we would do a smaller rehabilitation of the pipe, a slip line or something like that. Do some work at the head wall areas, try to reduce some of the scour and the collapsing of the head wall and tail wall that are occurring now. We would probably not charge forward with such a large project if the grant's not approved. We're so far along, I think really the only thing left is the official "you've got it." We advertise. One of the last steps that FEMA requires is a public advertisement to say, does anybody have any issues with this grant before it's awarded? Any reason why we shouldn't award it, type of thing. That happened 4 or 5 months ago, maybe. I don't believe they received any comment at all, good or negative. So I fully anticipate we will be awarded. We probably will know the answer for sure before the budget's finalized here in the fall.
I have a question.
Okay.
Just where on Mauna Loa is it?
It's pretty
It's
early
just for
on,
me.
so if you're heading out of town on East Dunbarton Road heading
Yeah.
north, you take a left onto Mauna Loa
Yep.
almost immediately. Right there starts the...
Okay, so it's right near Mercer Court, or,
Exactly, right between East Dunbarton and Mercer Court.
okay.
Any more questions on the culvert projects? Adam, could we go back to your vehicles page you were talking about?
Yes, sir.
Available funding, NHTV grants, what does that stand for?
Oh, that's that New Hampshire the Beautiful.
New Hampshire View. So I'm not seeing any block grant money in this, which you get for the gas tax. Where does that go?
So our block grant funding is all in the revenue side of the budget. Even though we normally spend more on roads than the block grants amount are,
Understand.
what the select board's chosen to do in the past is include that in their general revenues, which would, I think, give them the flexibility to say if push came to shove and they needed, to spend more or less on highway, they can still take in that revenue. State law prevents it from being used on anything other than highway.
So they don't automatically apply your block grant money to your road plan? Okay. I don't like that, but that's okay.
It's a revenue, so in a way it is automatically applied, because you
But
have
because
your
it has
expense.
specific uses.
Right.
Yes,
You
yeah,
can't go buy a dump truck with it.
correct.
Right.
What else would you purchase?
You can-
Well,
I guess not
I
you
mean,
specifically, but what else does the select board decide that it goes to?
I
It
think,
has to go
you know,
for road-
it
it
has
has
to
to
go
go-
to road.
it's earmarked by state statute that it has to be used for road work.
Right.
road
And
or
our
road,
road work
road
budget
maintenance
is
related.
larger than that.
Tim's
Understandable.
kind of joking. I think we actually could go purchase a dump truck with it,
of
if
maintenance,
you can
yeah.
justify that it's a maintenance to be, equipment to be used on maintenance of
That's a
roads.
stretch.
We usually spend so much more, as Danielle said, in the actual construction or
Well, I
reconstruction.
just wanted to know if block grant money was being shown as a source funding, available funding source for road work, which I think
It
it
is on
should
the
be.
budget.
But it should be shown in the sheets then. The block grant money should be listed as a funding source then,
On road plan,
on any of them, wherever you're gonna use it. We have available funding for road plan, we have available funding for critical projects, and we have available funding for trucks, and I don't see block grant money anywhere, which it should appear as a revenue, because that's what the state statute earmarks it for.
well, I think the difference is this is a planning document rather than a budgeting
Well,
document,
then
so
why do we ask for spending, for funding sources then?
we usually do just to give a general idea of how it's being,
I think I would like to see
Allocated.
that included as a general idea, since that's what it's for. But
yeah, I think the amount too on the block grant has always been a little less predictable.
yeah, it's all
because
gas
they-
tax money.
Yeah, and they assign it and adjust it throughout the year. We get it in 2 installments.
Right.
but we can try
But you
and
still get
capture.
it regardless.
So, Tim, you, just for me again, like under line 128, public work revenue projections,
Yep.
is that where you think it should probably?
No, I just was looking on his source sheet, funding sources on his summary worksheets.
Oh, on the,
Oh.
on the worksheet itself,
Yeah,
okay. I
that's what I've
understand
been
what you're
talking
saying.
about right along.
Okay,
Thank you.
So if we could
Yeah.
possibly see that for the future references.
I
Because that's,
understand what you mean.
it's a good place to show the block grant money.
I thought you were talking about
We
the
don't have to know
grid.
how much it is because it changes every year.
Right, I
but-
thought you were talking about on the grid, and I'm like, but I don't have an
No, I was
amount for it.
talking about right here, because I was
Gotcha.
flipping pages. and
I
looking.
understand now. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we can do that.
Good. Any other questions for Public Works? Do you have anything else you'd like to add at this time, Adam?
Oh, I'll get you home earlier. I could go
No, that's
I'm
fine.
Sure, but no, I don't,
Short meeting.
don't have anything too big. Just off the matrix, I think the biggest thing we probably would have down the road from a building infrastructure type thing, we have some hopes for future ideas of the transfer station, both from covering of equipment, so we don't constantly during the winter have to clean off, 5 trailers,
Everything.
roll-offs, trucks, all that. It's kind of dangerous and, time consuming. But also, some improvements to how our recycling and our trash, loading and unloading and kind of the traffic flows of the transfer station work. We're nowhere near, being ready to put that in and start earmarking funds for it, but kind of that's our big thing. We've got our office building just had an expansion a few years ago. We're in great shape there. Our garage, we've had some sprinkler and irrigation funds for that, so we're in pretty good shape with our maintenance garage. The transfer station itself is probably in the future where you'll start seeing numbers, in the out years.
But that would be a warrant.
That's right. Probably so, yep.
Folks, anything else for Adam tonight before we send him home to his family?
I got a question, but it's offline.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, my question is, looking at the watersheds for installation of the culvert to try to anticipate, is this to avoid things like recently happened up north?
Yes, sometimes sometimes that's due to an undersized culvert. Sometimes it would be a culvert that we kind of, like we talked about earlier, that might have some rusting of the invert started. As a large volume of water is rushing through
Yeah,
it
it totally
really rapidly, it can start to pull that material out from around or underneath the culvert quickly.
You're talking about the bottom of the culvert?
Right.
Brad, when a culvert fails on the bottom, it does what they call scour, if you didn't already say that word. And when it scours the bottom, it sucks the material down from the sides.
Yeah.
And then the road collapses on both sides. So that's why the bottom of the culvert is where the water flows is what he's
The
talking
bottom of the
about.
culvert's the important part, huh?
It is.
On the bigger ones, that's the most important part. Sometimes with a smaller culvert, the water flow is so much that it will
Overtop.
start to overtop the road, and sometimes you can get road loss from the top down, but usually it's from bottom.
Scour. That's when all the metal culverts are all rotten out. Okay, folks,
Thank you.
Adam's having class on DPW Wednesday at 9. Anybody wants to attend, he'll answer all your questions.
Comment for how much falls within your department, how many different activities?
4 divisions, yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
We're pretty busy. Pretty busy.
Okay. Anybody
Good
else?
work. It's a good busy.
Good, thank you, Adam, for
All right.
coming in.
Thank you all.
Reserve the right to call you back.
Next year, you can re-lecture us on the solid waste challenge that you talked about last year,
Sure.
but we'll save that for next year.
When he brings his new plan in for his new solid waste facility.
Yes, we've got more to come. I'll share during the budget season about our trash and recycling contracts and all that. But some good news, some okay news. All right, have a good night.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Take care.
See you, Adam.
Yeah, thank you. Bye. So anything's out at the transfer station site?
Everything is at DPW's yard. They have everything there. You drive in, you've got recycling and solid waste, and you drive by that, and you go to the highway department. It's pretty compact down there. But they have all the land
They want
that's out
to stick
back.
the police station on the other side.
Now, they want to put it in the Parks Department.
I just wondered, it's not a big site, so.
Well, look, in the Parks and Rec department.
Well, it's
That's what
it's
you
the
put
Perry-
it-
the
Part
Perry
is
property.
part of the
The Perry
sports
land.
complex area. the Barnard property.
Well, this is all hearsay, so I don't really
Oh, I
think we
know.
should discuss it.
This is,
Anybody else have anything else for this meeting? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
well, I think we ought to mention what the next meeting is and who will be sitting, that's all.
Tell us about it, Brad, please.
Okay, well, we've got library and sewer, and on the date of
August
August
1st.
1st.
August 1st.
So, if library and sewer is a short,
Sewer is always short.
yeah, so if we're gonna have short presentations, if this group would like to begin, we can begin our final work and maybe shorten the process, not just throw a meeting away to come in here for half an hour.
You mean like after their presentation?
After their
Have our
presentation,
deliberations? is
We
it?
can begin,
I'm good
we
with
can
that.
talk about priorities first, or we
I'm-
can.
I'm
we
good
can-
with that.
We can sort of try to move forward in a productive manner and not, take a whole night and come here for a 40-minute meeting and go home.
I'm good with
Make
that.
something of it.
Question on that, Mr. Chair?
Excuse me?
A question on that.
Please.
If we are going to potentially start that deliberative process on the 1st, would you like a revised matrix? Understanding that if the library or the sewer commission had any changes, we'd be kind of just incorporating them on the fly, but that way, anything that's come to date, we could capture.
I would appreciate an updated matrix that night,
Okay.
because if something comes up for sewer or library, we can pencil it in on our own
Right,
matrix
because it's not as
and
much.
discuss it, and then when we do our final matrix to hand off to the budget committee and the select board and
Mm-hmm.
to the planning board, obviously for approval, then you
Okay.
can do one more revision for,
I suspect there probably wouldn't be anything with sewer, but possibly with library. That's,
I think library's in a big planning phase.
So,
Okay.
would
I'll
we
have that.
anticipate town department heads being called back, or
We only ask them come back if we have questions that were unanswered.
Right, but so we're gonna start talking about it on the 1st, so we're still gonna meet on
We
the
still have
15th.
another meeting beyond that. We still have the 15th scheduled and the 12th scheduled. So if we begin our deliberative part on the 1st after sewer commission's presentation, if we have callbacks, we could use that on the 15th and have our callbacks on the 15th.
Okay. Okay.
Because we already have it listed
Yeah, I
as
see what you're
callbacks
saying,
for the
I see what you're
15th.
saying now.
Because if you wait till the 15th for callbacks, you only have one more meeting beyond that.
Right, right.
The
Actually,
12th
you
is
don't.
actually the
planning-
presentation.
The 15th is the last meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So we better do a little chatting on August 1st.
We had asked Brad, not Brad, what am I saying? Brad's right
Sitting
there.
right next to me.
We had asked, what's his name, from Parks and Rec,
Rick
Rick
Wilhelm.
Wilhelm, to come back with his pool inclusion of the pool that he left out. And I sent him an email reminding him, don't forget.
Well, if Rick doesn't come back and do it, that's on Rick. We already asked him to do it. If he doesn't come back and do it, that's on him. We're not gonna press the issue. We made our point, and we asked him to reincorporate it, and if he chooses not to, that's it.
I guess, do we want him to do that on the 1st? We want to ask him if he's going to come back and present anything to us?
I don't think,
on the
I
1st?
think we've already made our case to Rick.
No, it's just what day, if he's going to come, which day would he
Well,
come?
Joanne can email him that we're going
Yeah,
to begin
I'll
deliberation.
email him because I think it's really important to not
Yeah,
include that.
It's Rick's decision, not ours.
but if he's gonna come, he should come on the 1st.
Yeah,
He didn't
yeah.
come in on first. So if he wants to come back on the 1st, we'd be happy to have him present something that we can add into the matrix. Don't wanna
Because
twist his
that
arm.
leaves us as the 15th, and then what you're saying, the next meeting we present.
The 15th is the last meeting. That's it, after the 15th.
Then we do the.
and then the 12th is when we make the
12th is when we
presentation
go to the planning board, and then any
We all
board,
go
any
there
of
and
the
say a
committee
part, or
members
we just
would
go
like to come to
listen?
the planning board
Okay.
meeting, you're welcome to attend and speak. June doesn't want to go anymore.
Okay, you know what we do, we divide it up, so.
You guys figure it out.
We all go on the 12th, right? That's the planning board in the mail.
No, we all used to go, since I've been here, and one of us would,
Make-
We should
or
pick a
one
thing
or
and
two
then-
departments.
However you guys have done it in the past, is fine. In other words, each member of this committee then makes a presentation.
Yeah,
to
it's a very
represent
brief
one of the
I give like a little.
Well, you know.
So then I think
Give it
we
to
should,
you.
then I think at our next meeting, please make a note, whoever's doing the agenda, that we need to assign departmental roles to board committee members to speak. Whichever one they want to speak
Yeah, I
on.
need a little bit of time.
Just make sure you show up, Jack.
That's why I need a little bit
I
of
saw you
time.
on Chronicle.
Yeah, I'm a real
You're a
celebrity
real
now.
star now.
Oh, he was on, I
You
missed that.
autographed my book.
Yeah, yeah.
I missed that.
All right,
Want to find in YouTube?
we need a motion to adjourn from
So
someone.
moved.
Motion to adjourn by Brad. Anybody second it?
Second.
Seconded by
Okay.
Jack from the restaurant department. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. Thank you, GTV, we're done.